What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today. I am Sean Murphy, joined alongside Marquette's movement shooter, my muse, my flame, Troy Sergey. Troy, what's going on, my guy? How are you?
I'm doing fine. Nothing much, Sean. Looking forward to a late night game tonight as of we're recording against the Trailblazers. Should be a good one. Pistons had a good game. I know that you were at the other night on Saturday night against the Hornets at the LCA. A lot of great defensive, wins to be happy about. Certainly some things that we will talk about with improvement, but just looking forward to another night of NBA basketball with our Detroit Pistons. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch that Trailblazers game later on tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Pistons came out and took care of business in pretty dominant fashion against the Charlotte Hornets after the loss against the Dallas Mavericks, which was one of the worst officiated basketball games I've seen in my entire life. We'll get to that later. But ultimately, like, what you wanted to see from the Pistons was the response that you exactly got. And on the defensive end, yeah, it was a pretty dominant affair, especially for certain players that we'll get to in a second. But I would be remiss if I didn't start this podcast with a little bit of a story time in regards to this here bomber jacket that I'm putting on, you see, because Troy, I told you about this after the putting on a jacket in a chair is hard. But anyways, I told you about this afterwards. I was sitting in the pregame press conference for the Hornets when Charles Lee came in. Mind you, I don't think I told you this added piece of context. You know, he's one of the commentators for the Charlotte Hornets is Del Curry,
right?
Yeah. Yep. So the father of Stephen Curry is 2 rows back, and here's this as well. Charles Lee starts his press conference by looking my way, looking at this here bomber jacket, and says, "That's a nice jacket, man." And I was like, "Thanks, man." He specifically said, "That's a nice bomber. You guys must really need those up here." And I was like, you know what? I respect a man who starts his press conference by pointing out good fashion choices. So I thought it was hilarious. I had to point that out. But the real story, Troy, obviously, was the defense that we saw, in particular from Ausar Thompson. He had 7 combined blocks and steals, otherwise known as stocks. He didn't allow a single point in this game against the Charlotte Hornets. And it felt like the Ausar Thompson game for everyone who was doubting and questioning him after his rough offensive performance against the Celtics, for everyone who maybe had some doubts, after his ejection against Dallas. This was like the epitome of why Ausar Thompson is one of the best prospects in basketball, and why he's perhaps the best perimeter defender we have in the league. I mean, just for this one night, Troy, I tweeted it. He was the best defender on the planet that night, and it wasn't even close.
Right. And I think, when was the last time, Sean, that a player, had a full, 4-quarter game where their opponent did not score in the basketball, right? Especially,
I mean, it happened, but I don't have the stat off the top of the dome.
Right. But just how fast-paced the NBA has gotten, even in the last 10 years, that type of statistic is even more harder to come by, right? And for Ausar Thompson to do that, yeah, you can make the argument, a weaker opponent, the Hornets, but Hornets still have some great wings, some great players that he was defending. I
mean, they have a plethora of offensive scoring talent, exactly. They can put the ball in the basket. That's not their problem.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, certainly a coming out party, if you will, for Ausar Thompson. Now, of course, we've talked about before. I think anyone that's really watched the Detroit Pistons play know that, Ausar Thompson's just an incredibly valuable asset on the wing, perimeter, on the defensive end. And my goodness, a game like that is almost hard to repeat.
Yeah, I mean, it was a stark reminder as just how dominant he can be, right? Like, you look at LaMelo Ball, he came out in this one. He scored 8 points very quickly in the first quarter, and then Ausar Thompson started guarding him, and he quite literally couldn't do anything else the rest of the game. He got a technical foul in the second half. He got to 5 fouls very quickly in the third quarter. So like it was very clearly not his night, and you could just very clearly tell that he was affected by the physicality and by the intensity that Detroit's defense brought. And like that's like a physicality intensity that you really only see from the likes of like an Ausar Thompson, from like a Ron Holland and like Case and Wallace, or guys on like the Thunder. Like this is like a very short list of best on ball defenders and best like perimeter defenders in the league. And the fact that he's not just doing it, like with his deflections or with his steals, but like his ability to get block shots as well. Just the fact that he can be pretty much anywhere on the court, it seems, at a given time, guard 1 through 5 pretty reliably. And, like I tweet, I legitimately cannot remember seeing a defensive performance this dominant, at least live, let alone in my lifetime. It's pretty hard to think of another game where 7 stocks is just video game numbers, especially from a wing.
You're right. And I think what's really fun about this is the future is bright, right? This is only year 3. Ausar Thompson is really figuring out now what it means to be an elite perimeter defender. And I think that's just really exciting when you look at this young core. And, we're obviously high on Cade and Duran, and we can talk all about them all day long. But to really have an Ausar Thompson that's really showing out as one of the best wing defenders already in year 3. You mentioned the players on the Thunder, especially like a Case and Wallace type. I mean, look at who the Oklahoma City Thunder are, right? They're a championship team built upon their defense, built upon their high intensity, and how they're able to play the basketball. And, Ausar Thompson on this team moving forward is just such an exciting thing as an asset to have on your basketball team.
Well, and you look at the standings and you look at the best records in the league. Number 1 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Number 2 is the Detroit Pistons. You look at defensive rating. Number 1 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Number 2 is
the Detroit Pistons.
Dude, how'd you know?
I wasn't quite sure, because I wasn't sure if the Phoenix Suns potentially were number 2 on that list.
Hey, they're actually, you know what? Funny enough, the Phoenix Suns are surprisingly not a bad defensive team. Shout out Dylan Brooks is the thing I wasn't expecting to say in 2025. But damn it, when he's gone to multiple teams and made them interesting, that's something of note. Right. So yeah, random Phoenix Suns tangent. But anyways, I mean, Troy, I've brought this up before. I think this just comes down to how you see the game philosophically. And I know a lot of people, put a lot, it starts with having that offensive, superstar, or having, that guy that ignites everything on the offensive side of the basketball, which the Pistons obviously have, with Cade Cunningham. But I still think if you look at the thing that really differentiates the Pistons and the Thunder from say the Hornets or the Bulls or the Hawks or a lot of these teams that are in the middle or bottom pack of the league, it's the defensive side of the ball, you don't just have to take my word for it. I actually asked, Charles Lee, because he was talking about, some of the efforts and things that you're trying to work on, defensively. I showed this clip, on the last pod, just, with post game, content from the Hornets game. But nonetheless, I just still think this is really interesting. And I think it's something that you and I could discuss. So this is Charles Lee before Pistons Hornets, talking about how if the Hornets want to get to where they want to get, they have to establish themselves on the defensive side of the ball.
Coach, going along those points, it seems like teams like the Pistons, Oklahoma City, a lot of the young teams who have ascended towards the top of the league, seems like one of the common threads has been defense and physicality. Do you think that's going to be the main point of emphasis in order to get the Hornets from playing in territory towards the top of the Eastern Conference? And kind of how do you go about that challenge, Dave?
Yeah, I would say for us, we try to build our identity on being an elite two-way team. It starts with our veteran players, our leaders, Brandon and Melo and Miles, have kind of set a tone of that's who we want to be. And I fully support that. And I think everyone around them, when they lead by example, it becomes contagious with our group. And as you're seeing in the NBA, there's a wealth of offensive talent and skill, and everyone's able to score the ball. But if you want to be able to pull out wins, even when you are not shooting well, you got to rely on your defense. And I think that it's got to be a mindset for our group going forward as we continue to build winning habits is the mindset that it's not all about offense. There are other ways to impact the game, and the defensive side of the ball really gives us a great chance to be able to win games.
And when you look at the difference again, Troy, like in this game and, just as a whole, when you talk about the difference between like the Pistons and the Hornets and like what they're building, what they're developing, who they are, like it all starts and stops with the defensive end. Like the Hornets, they have guys that can score the ball. Cunningham, absolute stud. Miles Bridges still could put up 20 plus points a night in his sleep. In fact, we have more guys in this league now than we have ever had in the history of the NBA who can score the basketball at will. If you want to win, it still always comes back to the ability to defend at a high level. If you can't defend, you're not winning a title.
Yeah, and it's the hardest part of the game too. And again, you mentioned it too. You have smooth scores, right? Guys who are when they have the ball in their hands, they're able to create shots for themselves, and that's it's a great part of the game. But it's hard to be locked in. It's hard to have stellar communication on the defensive end. It's hard to be quick on your feet, be able to react to other teams' offense, being able to react to the talent, just the array of talent that your opponent has on the offensive end. So it is a very hard task to learn. It's so, especially at the NBA level. I mean, you talk about the high school and college level, it can be a very, very hard skill to learn. But when we talk about the pros, and these are the best players in the world that can score the ball, and you're to go out on a nightly basis and to defend on an elite level to help that organization and that team to win a basketball game, that's just a really hard task and challenge. And credit to Coach Lee, for the Charlotte Hornets that we know has been towards the bottom of the standings the past couple of years, to have a high emphasis on that part of the game.
Yeah, and I think they're at least making progress. They're against Detroit at the time, they were they were bottom 5 defensive rating, and right now they're a little bit higher. Offense again has never really been the problem of the Hornets. And if you look at all the people that are coming into the league, this is the best scoring talent we've ever had from rookies, especially too. Like I brought up Cunningham, he was awesome. Cooper Flagg is coming out and doing was doing things at 18 years old as a basketball player that we just straight up have never seen before. Like he encroached on records in like a 12-13 game span that Kobe and LeBron set over 70 or 80 game span. Just to give perspective of how good the scoring talent is now compared to then. And especially with the pace of play, like teams are getting out in transition more than ever. People are getting easier buckets than ever. So if you're able to control the game as a team on the defensive side of the ball, that's why I brought up before, like when people are talking about the Pistons, whether or not this season's fluky, that's why I argue it's not. Because of the Bulls, they were shooting at an insane level. They weren't ever going to be able to replicate that over an 82 game sample. But this Pistons team clearly can defend regardless of if they're playing at a freaking IKEA or if they're playing, at like a grocery store. This team, regardless of the circumstances, has been able to pull out wins. And I think that's why they're establishing themselves as potentially the best team in the Eastern Conference.
You're absolutely right. And then, when you think long-term about this and the playoffs, right, we obviously know that the game slows down during playoffs, and, even the defensive ability that you were able to play in the regular season, the demand and the pressure even goes higher. I think these moments in December, in January, are going to be really important that we keep the pressure up, because it's going to translate, I think, into the playoffs of this team feeling comfortable that they can, no matter who they're playing, no matter what first round or second round opponent that comes their way, they will defend the basketball, and they will be able to score the ball as well. And I really hope that as we get into the later parts of the season, into the playoffs, that this Detroit Pistons team, with how talented they've been in the defensive end, that consistently translates to wins when some of those games are a little more high pressure, high stakes.
Well, and I don't even think it's as much the talent, Troy, because we've seen this team has the talent for years. I think what really has been the biggest difference, and the reason why they're where they are now versus even where they were, say, a year ago, it's the attention to detail and it's the intensity to it. Like, I think if you watch even between the whistle, one of the biggest things that I notice is, yeah, sure, you still have the moments where Pistons are jawing with like, like other players or they're jawing with officials. But like, if you watch like the intensity that they bring in between the whistle, it's not brought at their opponents. It's brought to each other. And it's about the execution. And it's about making sure that they have all the like the little details right. Like, if you ever want to notice why the Pistons are so good at the end of game, watch Cade Cunningham, not during the whistle, but before the whistle, after the whistle. Watch how he communicates with his coach. Watch how he communicates with his teammates. They make sure that there is not a single detail that is missed on either side of the court. And that's why this team is where they're at. It's that attention to detail. And that's like, if you want to look at like the biggest like kudos and like the biggest thing that you can track of like what JB Bickerstaff and his staff has brought to this Pistons team, it's that insane attention to detail. And that's, I mean, you really have to have that to be the second best defensive team in basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Defense is always about attention to detail. And, I keep saying it over and over again, the age of this group and how young they are, and they've still been able to figure out a lot of these things, and that they have been able to buy into a culture that is so attention to detail. That speaks a lot of volume of the leadership skills that are growing within this roster.
Yeah. And again, it just speaks to why JB Bickerstaff's just a perfect fit for this organization, for this team. And yeah, it's just everything is clicking into place, so to speak. Now, Troy, I figured the week of the holidays, everyone's kind of, we're thinking naughty or nice, in terms of basketball. I want to come up with a little bit of a new segment, find a way to bring some spicy takes to the table. And so today's segment's called Fair or Foul. It's pretty simple. I'm going to give you some statements. We're going to debate whether they're fair or foul. Okay.
Let's hear it.
And I'm starting hot, straight up. I'm actually going to be having Kukahil on the pod later this week to talk a little bit more in depth about this topic specifically. But my first statement that I want to present is Jaden Ivey's minutes officially aren't limited because of injury, but because of production. And look, we're about 14, 15 games in now of Jaden Ivey being back. We're about a month plus of Ivey's return to the team. And, at first, I think naturally we're kind of thinking about what his role could look like in the rotation for the rest of the season. We're wondering, how things can look for Ivey. And we're saying, maybe this is just, like minutes restriction. This is, like working him back into the lineup. But I think it's becoming a pretty abundantly clear, at least from my perspective, that it's not entirely because of the minutes restriction. I think this has something to do with production, and I think in part you can look at some of the lack of scoring on the offensive end. But Troy, I think you can also look at the personal fouls being committed in the defensive end and just struggling to stay in front of his guys. Do you think I'm being fair? Do you think I'm being foul?
You're being fair, Sean, and I think the best regard to that is the fact that he's been back. He's been back so long, right? A month now, a little over a month, 5 weeks, I believe. And when he's on the court, he doesn't, like I said last podcast, he's just not the same Jaden Ivey, right? The minutes are lower, and so naturally the production is going to be lower, statistically speaking. And because of that, when he's on the court, I guess I haven't paid much attention to the foul part, but certainly the scoring part, he doesn't contribute in the way it has that. He doesn't have that same role in that flash that he did, of course, last year and even the season before that. So I'm going to have to go fair with that, Sean. And it breaks my heart to say, just because I'm so high on Jaden Ivey, but the scoring isn't there. And because of that, JB's not playing him as much.
Yeah. I mean, like if you want to look at he still hasn't played, he's only played 20 minutes one time this season, but even in the games he's played under 20 minutes, he's gotten to 3+ personal fouls 3 times. Which that specifically, just shows the struggle on the defensive side with staying in front of your opponent and all those different things. But like, you can even just look at, some of the on-off numbers with him and Karis LeVert on the floor together. Those two just haven't been a great fit when you just look at, like their ability. And look, I want to nip this in the bud of like, there is no anti-Jaden Ivey agenda here. In fact, I think, you could pull up a lot of clips of us in the past being very vocally supportive of Jaden Ivey. Heck, you can, pull up the video of me working at the, place that's a borderline piss fetish clinic, of me celebrating Jaden Ivey becoming a Detroit Piston. Like that's out there. So like there's no animosity here. Like especially like Jaden Ivey the person. I think you and I both very much want to see succeed. But there are two realities at play here that I think that I think are just impossible to ignore. The first reality is that you just brought up. This is not the same Jaden Ivey that is back on the court now that was back on the court before the injury. And that's impossible to ask someone to be the same Jaden Ivey right away a month after coming back, especially when Jaden Ivey was still figuring out who exactly Jaden Ivey was on the basketball court. The second piece of this, and perhaps the more pressing piece of this situation, is this is not the same Detroit Pistons that Jaden Ivey left as the one that Jaden Ivey returned to. Like this time last year, even when the Pistons were ascending up the standings, this was never about playoffs or about, or about deep, like a deep playoff run. It was about figuring out who were like the players that you were moving forward with. Whereas now we are legitimately talking finals. And when you are talking about a finals, you can no longer, like just play guys just for the sake of, oh, I just want to give him run. No, you're playing for home court positioning in the Eastern Conference for May. You're going up against the New York Knicks, who are one of the hottest ascending teams in the league right now, as far as what we've seen over the last month or so. There's no time if a guy is just showing you he's not ready, regardless of where you drafted him, regardless of whether or not he has an extension looming this summer. The reality of it is you play the guys who will win you the game. And unfortunately, that has not been Jaden Ivey ever since he's come back. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And you think it's kind of a hard switch to kind of have those two mentalities, just because, 2 years ago we were playing, Gallinari for minutes just because, right? Like when we look at
I forgot until you brought that up. Gallinari was a Piston for a second.
Right,
wow.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
And yeah, just like rotating different players. You say the statistic all the time. How many teammates has Cade Cunningham had in the past 4 years? It's more than a lot of these stars, right? More than Brunson, more than LaMelo Ball. Even.
I really got to do the math someday of the amount of teammates that Cade has had like 4 or 5 years into his career versus some of the other stars that we've seen, because it has to be staggering. It really does.
And just now switch of no. That Detroit Pistons from literally 2 short years ago is not the same Detroit Pistons trying to win and compete today. It's a hard switch to turn on and off, but it has to be talked about.
Yeah. And listen, it doesn't bring me joy to say that the Pistons have just straight up been better ever since Jaden Ivey's been out of the lineup. But if we're just calling a spade, the Detroit Pistons have been better when Jaden Ivey's not on the basketball court. And I still think that there's reason to give it time. I still think that at the very least, you have until the deadline to see where things are at before you really start making some decisions. But like, when someone isn't necessarily showing that they're at their highest value as far as potential trade return anyway, like there's still incentive for the Pistons to allow Jaden Ivey to get those 15, 20 minutes a night, see if he can start working things out, getting more comfortable, finding his role and finding his footing. And, come February 2nd, when the trade deadline hits, we'll see where things are at. And I think we'll have a lot better of an idea of what Jaden Ivey's future looks like. But at the very least, I think as of right now, if you're asking yourself why Jaden Ivey's not on the court as much, I hate to say it, man, but the answer is the answer is simply because of play. So
what do you think when we talk about trade, Sean, in February, with the trade deadline, what's his value right now? Because obviously it's different because if he were playing on a Washington Wizards team, right, or a New Orleans Pelicans team, I think regardless he'd have more minutes, and with more minutes, he might have a little more production. But when you're talking about, like we just talked about, a team that's at the top of the conference, it's a little bit different. So would one of those maybe younger teams that maybe are towards the bottom of one of the conferences be interested in adding a guy like Ivey to the roster?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's still Jaden Ivey supporters and fans out there. I'm sure there's people in front offices that look at him and imagine that they can probably bring him into their situation and allow him to, to make, to have the room to make mistakes again. I think that's just a big piece of it is like, there's very little margin of error right now for Jaden Ivey coming into this lineup. And so I'm sure there are people who out there, who firmly believe that they could give Ivey, kind of like a better runway. I just don't think there's really I don't really know anyone who'd be giving up a first round pick right now for Jaden Ivey. Do you like maybe they could go out and get maybe they could package him to go out and get Sam Hauser from Boston. But if we were talking months ago about packaging, Ivy to go get a Lauri Markkanen, that's a fall from grace, to put it lightly.
Yeah, you're right.
So again, I'm not saying the guy's bad at basketball. I'm just saying that it's becoming more and more abundantly clear to me that this might not be a long-term fit. That's just the unfortunate. We've talked for months about how it's not as simple as him coming back into the lineup and all of a sudden things just click into place. That was never going to be the case. So this is just that uncomfortable, awkward transition process that we've just kind of been speculating about.
Yeah.
So,
do you have another fair or foul, or is that the one of the podcast?
Oh, believe me, we got more, Troy. Come on.
Okay. Let's get it.
It's almost like you saw the list. Anyways, the second fair or foul. The Pistons' three-point shooting is a real problem.
Yeah.
And listen, I know this might feel like it's pretty harsh to say about a team that's top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating, and it's the second best record in the league, and is, doing things that they haven't done in a long time. But if you've watched the last few games, specifically, even with all the, officiating issues that we saw in Dallas, and believe me, Troy, we will be getting to officiating later. Even with all of that, the Pistons shot 30 more times than the Mavericks did and lost. Even in that 26-point win against the Hornets, as a team, they shot 24% from three. That's just not going to fly when you get into May and June. And if there's anything that I think you've seen the Pistons struggle against, or I think you've seen teams get privy to more, it's the fact that you can play against the Pistons in the zone, and you can close whatever gap in the scoreboard there is. And so, unless they go and make a move, Troy, I think this team's really going to struggle to get deeper into the postseason if they can't shoot the three. Am I being fair or am I being foul?
You're being fair, because when you look at that Mavericks stat line, I believe, what was it, 6 for 33, and the Mavericks themselves shot, I think, worse than we did. So just to think that we could have won that game by a lot, and instead we actually lost in overtime, that should speak volume of, okay, we're critical of the Mavericks at times, but we can't beat the Mavericks on a poor shooting night.
Yeah.
I just think that has to be addressed. But I still love, a Duncan Robinson. I'm still high on him. I still think that, he is such a good addition in this roster. But Sean, you tell me, what would this exact roster plus a Malik Beasley look like?
Oh, it'd be a lot different. But I mean, even just Duncan Robinson is not the problem. The problem is he's about your only source. If you look at the numbers, flat out, The Pistons right now in 3-point makes a game are 28th in the league. 28th. That's just not going to get it done in the postseason. Troy, can you name a team over the last decade in this NBA who would be bottom 10 in 3-point shooting and could win a title?
Right. Yeah, I can't.
Hell no.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. Like, the only team maybe would be Oklahoma City, but like if you were to put the Pistons against the Thunder right now, and especially if you're to just go out 3-point shooting, not even in the same stratosphere.
And you still got great players on the Thunder, like Lou Dort, right, that can go out there and give you a bucket, and Jalen Williams, and like guys that absolutely
give you a three.
Can sit on that 3-point arc and really stroke it for you. So
hey yo. I mean, they're first in 2-pointers, they're fourth in 2-point attempts. Like this is clearly like an elite like an elite paint team. They're third in steals, third in blocks. Like they do a lot of things really well. But if there's anything in this league, if you want to get deep in the postseason, you cannot afford to not do well, it's 3-point shooting. And I think this could be potentially, unless it gets addressed, could be the Achilles heel of the Pistons and could hold them back from being the historic run that we think this year can be.
Yeah, got to get it fixed. And also, I think with the guys we have, like especially Cade too, and Karis LeVert. I mean, these guys we know can do it, but it's about utilizing our offense, that putting them in position that they can score and create them with having open 3-point shots that can attest to that. And
I will say,
I trust our coaching staff.
Yeah, I will say, if you look at some of the numbers, it's pretty staggering. Like Cade is actually a lot better of a pull-up 3-point shooter than he is a catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter, which you would not think that that's the case. Like that goes against like how basketball players like just are. Like Troy, as a shooter, like a catch-and-shoot 3 is a lot easier than a pull-up 3. So like even if Cade were just to improve as a catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter, even that would make a massive difference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you have any solutions?
Well, get in the gym. Oh, I mean, in all seriousness, I think in part, it's just, like I think some of it, like in Duncan, I asked him about this after the game as well. In Charlotte, he just talked about, how like you really have to be process driven, and it's not about, it's not about the amount of looks that you're getting as much as it's about the quality of the looks, which, I definitely think that there's some merit to. Like I think, like the problem is like even the Pistons, it feels like they're missing some of their open 3-point shots too. So like the matter of it is like at a certain point, it just comes down to you got to hit shots, and some of that, like some of that certainly can come down to execution, can come down to, like drawing up more simple threes. Like, like whenever Duncan does get a look, like generally a lot of them come off of, like come off of screens or come off of like specific actions that are opening him up for more 3-point shots. But I even think some of the selection too, like, like with like a Ron Holland, like I appreciate some of the effort he is putting in, like on his 3-point shot. But like, if it's just not falling and you're being left wide open continuously, then like maybe recognize that there's a reason you're being left wide open. Like over the last 2 games, Ron Holland's 0 for 6 from 3. And on the season, he's 25%. And even though he's been like taking, like some improvements and working with Fred Vincent, like if the shot's just not there, then don't take the shot.
Yeah. That's kind of basketball 101 when you talk about an elite level and designing offensive schemes to specifically score the ball. If you're not open, man, can't stroke it.
Well, and also like in this league, if you find yourself continuously open, there's a reason. Like these guys aren't dumb. If you're being left open, you are being left open by choice. And that's really kind of what I'm getting at there. Like, Ron, if you're open, there's a reason. I'm sorry, but there's a reason. Yeah. So anyway, that I think we both agree that's pretty fair. This next one, this is really more so, and we kind of talked to the pod. This is really more so kind of a rant. I think between the pace of play and also just the physicality that we're seeing, I think it's resulting in some of the worst officiating we've ever seen. And I think you can point to that Pistons Mavericks game where it was very clear that there were some missed calls on both ends, especially in Detroit's way, that could have very differently swayed the game. I think where pace of play even comes in there is towards the end. The Pistons are pushing the ball down the court. Jalen Duren gets a rebound. JB tries to call timeout, I think in part because of the amount of possessions, but also just because of, like the pace of the play. Like, I think, like it's easy for like those types of things to be missed. You're getting more possessions than ever. So, I think, like with a lot of refs are having to keep up with this pace, and it's easier said than done. Like a lot of times, like, it's a lot easier to spot when something's missed from our home, from the comfort of our couch or during a replay than it is during the real-time action of the game. And like right now, just like for perspective, like we are seeing the fastest pace of play in the NBA since the 80s. This is as fast as the game has ever been. And it wasn't just the Pistons Dallas game where we saw officiating come up and be an issue. Ime Udoka just came in, just laid the out of the referees after the Rockets Denver game.
Yes, I was watching that live. Yeah.
Chris Finch got ejected 5 minutes into Minnesota OKC earlier this week, where he just went ballistic. David Adelman of the Denver Nuggets came out and he got ejected and was flipping out at the officials. Like, it has been there are points in time where it feels like officiating is at the forefront of people's frustrations. And it feels like we're very much at one of those inflex points right now, where between, I think, a lot of teams, especially with the physicality of teams like Oklahoma City brings, I mean, teams like Pistons bring as far as the physicality goes, but also just with how fast the game is, I think we're seeing a real crisis in officiating right now.
Do you think with the poor officiating, Sean, it's something as simple as new refs, or something as simple as the league stepping in and Adam Silver making maybe a defined statement of, hey, these calls that maybe weren't called back in 5 years ago are now going to be called today? Or do you think maybe it's some refs who are 50-50 of, hey, if you're getting this ref on this night, he's going to let you be more physical. But if you're getting this ref on this night, he's just not going to, he's going to be blowing the whistle like crazy.
Right. And that's kind of part of the problem, is that you are getting those nights where it's like, oh, John Goebel's the crew chief tonight. Expect a crappy called game, that's kind of the problem of where we're at. And I think the biggest thing that needs to be addressed in officiating right now, in my opinion, is just the consistency. And I think you can even point last season where at the All-Star break, Adam Silver stated that there was a change in emphasis in how games were being called in the middle of the season. So when you have a system where you're officiating, where the way the game is being officiated can just change in the middle of the season off of a phone call from the commissioner's office, that's a problem. Like, when you have such a weak foundation for your consistency that you are willing to change it on the spot just because of some complaints, when I think of the what really needs to be done, I think there needs to be a decision made on the amount of physicality that's allowed in the game, because it's very clearly something that goes back and forth, where sometimes, it seems like there's, a desire for more physicality and, for defense to really have more of a spot. Whereas sometimes it feels like calls are getting made every single possession and guys are on the free throw line all of the time. And so getting all new refs in there, I mean, that's easier said than done. And I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that we have lack of quality refs. I think, it's a very difficult job. I think for the most part, a lot of the people there have been doing it for a long time and are pretty good at doing it. I think whenever you have that level of systemic issue, it goes beyond any individual referee. It goes into the consistency. It goes into the leadership, and it goes into the agenda that's being laid down from the top. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but all I have to say is, like, I think the consistency of officiating is something that has to be addressed, and I think that starts top down.
So I guess when we talk about fair or foul, of course, all the assessments you said are fair. Now, one maybe thing where you could argue foul is you were very adamant that this is some of the worst officiating we've seen in the league. Now, early 2000s, Lakers, Kings, we know that one series was pretty wild. Now, even with the into the 1990s, with some of the league's, lack of calling on some of the fouls with Jordan and getting him maybe to the line a little more. I know I've heard quite a bit of thoughts about that. Sean,
I mean, there were literally refs that were fixing games in the 2000s. Like there are definitely moments in time, especially with like the college system, all the technology we have. Overall, we're still at a pretty good place when it comes to officiating. However, I think the reason why you're seeing this continual frustration is because the consistency is a real problem. And that's where it's like, maybe the officiating isn't the worst it's ever been, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but man, I could maybe argue it's the least consistent it's ever been.
Sure. I like it. Fair.
Hey, look at that. And you know what? I appreciate you calling a foul on me there. I appreciate you checking, ringing me in, bringing reality. It's what we like to see. Next one. The Cleveland Cavaliers are officially a bad basketball team. I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. It's time. You look at you look at their record. Cleveland Cavaliers are currently 15-14. Right down there, they currently have a worse record than the Toronto Raptors. And you look at some of their game results. They've lost 4 of the last 5, including losing by 11 to Chicago and 16 to Chicago in back-to-back matchups. They lost to Charlotte in overtime, where they didn't even score a single point in overtime. The only win that they had in this 5-game stretch was a win over the Washington Wizards that they were only able to get because Donovan Mitchell scored 24 of his 48 points in the fourth quarter. And you look at you look at like this team right now, they're 11th in offensive rating, they're 14th in defensive rating. I guarantee you, as Evan Mobley misses the next couple of weeks, that defensive rating is only going to keep going down. And this is the most expensive roster in basketball. And I think we have real questions of if this team's even gonna be out of the play-in tournament right now. Troy, fair or foul?
The assessment of the Cavaliers is very much fair, but I'm gonna nitpick your word choice. A bad basketball team. I mean, they're still going to be hovering around, I think, that 7th or 8th seed. Now, that is far from the expectations we had of them. I mean, this was a put up or shut up year from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
They have chosen to shut the up. They have chosen to whimper the out of the gate.
Right. So I guess in that regard, I still see this team out of the play-in into the playoffs, but I see a first-round exit no matter who they play.
And if that's where this team's at, that's a real problem. And like you look at everything, like that they've had this season, and it's like some of the losses that they've had are just flat out unacceptable. And it's like the fact that like defensively they're no longer the team that they were. And the fact that like they can't even lean on the offense anymore. Like, yeah, you have Donovan Mitchell playing awesome, but like you don't really have guys who can shoot the basketball. You don't really have anyone that you can like rely upon like consistently. Like they're 27th in 3-point percentage, and they're 2nd in attempts.
Wow!
So they shoot a lot of them,
but they don't make a lot of them.
No. they're the Pistons actually are better in percentage than the Cavs are. The Cavs can't make them. The Pistons just don't really take them. Like that's the difference in their 3-point shooting struggles.
And even like Darius Garland has had some impressive spots, but it's just not translating to wins for them.
Well, I would say part of the problem this year has been, I mean, like he has looked better over the last like week. I would say like he had 35 against Chicago the other night, but the part of the problem, and if you listen to a lot of people in Cavs corner and like in in the world of the Cavaliers, Darius Garland's been a shell of himself. He's shooting 37% from the field this year, 32% from three, and like not saying that Darius Garland's just a bad basketball player now, but like if this team's gonna get to where they aspire to, they need that Darius Garland of old. And the problem is they might not have the timetable. Like if they don't get it figured out this season, they're not going to have the grace to figure it out next season because they go up to a $400 million payroll next year. And
that'll be devastating.
Yeah. And listen, they might not be a bad basketball team, but for a $400 million payroll, they're a bad basketball team.
So you're going to have tough conversations about like a Jared Allen, right? You're going to have tough conversations even about Darius Garland.
Mm-hmm. And if things continue to head in this conversation or head in this direction and guys aren't necessarily as high of a trade value as you'd want, you might have to start having some uncomfortable conversations about Donovan Mitchell sooner than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is getting real late in Cleveland real quick. So like they might not be a bad basketball team, but over the last month, they sure as hell have been a bad basketball team. Like if you look at if you look at the if you look at the quality of play, the teams that they've been losing to and the fashion that they've been losing, of late, they've been a bad basketball team. Are they in the grand scheme of things? No. So definitely foul them that way. But right now, I could say they're a bad basketball team. The next one, and this one hits a little bit close at home for you, Troy. Literally. The Pacers should trade Pascal Siakam. And they should do it before the deadline. Specifically, I think you look at the like where the Pacers are at right now. They're 6-22. Their last win, Troy, do you remember their last win?
Their last win would have been I was going to say against the Knicks, but then they choked and they lost.
Their last
would it
win
have been against the Wizards?
No, their last win was December 8th against the Sacramento Kings. So the Wizards of the West.
The Wizards of the West.
Yep. But otherwise, it's been a pretty brutal stretch. They just lost the other day by 19 to the Pelicans. They've lost a lot of games in blowout fashion, and it's pretty clear that this team is, especially this year, I mean, they're going to be very much in the top of the lottery. Pascal Siakam is going to be 32 by the time Tyrese Halliburton is back in the lineup. And we just had a conversation about how, assuming that Jaden Ivey was going to hit the ground running and everything was just going to be hunky dory and that they were going to, that everything was going to be back to normal, was just not a good presumption to make. I think you can make that exact same argument about Tyrese Halliburton, especially if you just assume after this year that you're just going to be able to slot in Tyrese Halliburton, make this team a finals contender again, and this year of losing just never happened. I just think you're being way too overly hopeful. And I think if the Pacers were being smart and being realistic, I think they would recognize that this would be the time that they could maximize their return on Pascal Siakam before things head into a bad direction. So Troy, Am I being fair or foul?
Yeah, you're being fair because when you look at just how the roster is constructed of obviously a down year, you're still playing, some of your younger guys and, Nimhard's getting more minutes and, your Jay Huff out there, playing solid minutes each and every night. I just think that there's no better time to trade Siakam than now, because when you look at teams, even our Pistons, I feel like we kept on to Richard Hamilton a little bit too long, and then he ended up actually walking in free agency. And plenty of other teams in the past too hold on to these pillar players that made them good for a period, and they're either they're shallow themselves or they're just not contributing to what's going on in the direction that you're going. That I feel like you could capitalize on Siakam's talent, because we haven't quite seen his production and his play totally, down, go totally downhill. But
he's the one thing going well this year.
Right. I was gonna say, when you are the one thing going well, that trade value is still high. I mean, Sean, if you're a contender in the East or the West, doesn't bringing in Pascal Siakam make your team instantly better?
Absolutely, it does.
He does. He 100% does. So if you talk about getting some assets, maybe another first-round pick to already go with the one that you're going to get in the lottery that presumably will probably be top 5. I like it, Sean. I think imagine getting 2 young key role players, your top 5 pick in the draft, and maybe a top 20 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the Indiana Pacers, do you hate that idea?
No, I think that idea sounds a lot more tantalizing, especially when you look at the other reality of this season. And it's that the young guys that you were hoping to get more out of, you just haven't. Benedict Mathurin, he's good, but like I think we can all just kind of agree that this just might be who he is. And if that's who he is, it's a good player, but it's not anything where you're like, okay, yeah, the Pacers are right back in the finals conversation next year. Andrew Nembhard, good player, but he's about what we expect of Andrew Nembhard to be. In order for this, for me to really feel good about keeping things going and keeping things as is, you needed guys like a Jarris Walker to come out and establish himself. He has not done that. You look at some of the other guys that they have, and it's like outside of that young nucleus of Tyrese Halliburton and Nembhard and maybe Mathurin, this is a pretty old basketball team. Especially you lose Miles Turner, and you don't really have a great solution to that yet. Reportedly you might go after a Daniel Gafford. He would certainly be an interesting player to slot in there, but the reality of it is you clearly don't have a team that's ready to contend for a title once Tyrese Halliburton comes back. And if that's the case, I think you're better off doing a short pivot, building around Halliburton and whoever you get in the draft this upcoming year, and you can still be pretty interesting. I think they'd get back there a lot quicker if they moved on from Siakam.
Right, because I mean, a little bit different take just with situation wise, but when you look at the 76ers, just look how better they got when they got a good draft pick to go along with their star, with Tyrese Maxey. Forget about Embiid, right? And I think when you look at the Philadelphia 76ers moving forward, you think of Maxey and VJ. And I think of when you look at the Pacers, truly imagine a top 5 pick going alongside with Halliburton at whatever position. If it's a wing, if it's a big, Halliburton with a rising star regardless. And we know that in this era of the NBA draft, your top 5 picks, obviously never a for sure, but we're seeing less and less lottery busts than 5-10 years ago we've saw. So
I mean, this class, it's about as for sure. You're getting as about a for sure bet as you're gonna get. It seems like the guys that are in the top 5 prospects this year, it seems like just about all of them are going to be able to play.
So you can tweak that roster with your new guy in Tyrese to look very similar to what Philly's doing.
Yep. No question. And I think they'd be far better off if they start having those conversations sooner rather than later. And at a certain point, man, quite frankly, you owe it to a Pascal Siakam who got you to the finals, who came to Indiana, who's done really good stuff for you. Like, he could not be enjoying this season. Like there's been multiple videos of him on the bench just looking miserable. And I feel bad for him. Last one on this fair or foul segment. The SGA foul baiting accusations are the most overblown in the history of social media. Troy, it's so stupid, the conversations around SGA. There was a stat, I forget the full extent of it, so I do apologize. But over the past like 30 plus years, there have been like 47 players who have scored 30 plus, like who have averaged 30 plus points a game in a season. Of those 47 players, do you know, like in free throw attempts, where Shai's season last year ranked?
Let's hear it.
31st out of 47.
Wow. Not even top 10, let alone 5.
No, not even top 25. 31st. And you look at like, first of all, like, yeah, guys who score a lot of points, they generally get to the line. But like, if you want to be real, like, let's be real. You know who's the guy that's leading the league right now in free throw attempts a game? Luka Doncic. You know I never get called I never hear get called a foul merchant? Luka Doncic. But he's as bad as they come.
I would probably even imagine that Anthony Davis and Jokic are even higher or pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that for certain off the top of my head, but I know but what I can tell you for a matter of fact is that the free throw merchant that everyone makes Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out to be, he's just not. If anything, he's a 6'8" Allen Iverson. And that's why he's as dominant as he is the question that we've always asked is, man, can you imagine if Allen Iverson was 6'8"? Well, yeah, we can. His name's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he's playing right in front of you. Appreciate it. Embrace it. If he wasn't playing in Oklahoma City, I have a feeling that the conversation would be a heck of a lot different. But the matter of fact is, like, this BS about the amount of free throws this guy takes, he's not even averaging 10 a game, Troy. What are we doing?
I probably have not seen all the posts. I've seen a couple of clips and I've seen, some trolls saying stuff like that, but it sounds like you've seen maybe more than I have. So maybe I'm a neutral argument with there, but that 31st out of 47 with players who average 30 point plus a game, that statistic is crazy because, I think a lot does have to do with what you just mentioned of a big point guard getting to the line. When you look at who's guarding, say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a lot of his opponents are smaller. And you talk about how much the game is getting more physical. Yeah, he's getting to the line, but to me, he would be getting to the line probably as much as I would expect.
Right.
And I mean, naturally, refs historically in the NBA are a little more kinder to star players. It just is how it goes. It's the nature of it. I mean, Cade's been getting to the line a lot this year. He got quite a bit of good calls his way, I thought, against the Hornets game. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said of like the star whistle is a thing, but also there's something to be said about like, yeah, if you're a really good scorer, you're generally pretty good at drawing contact. And the point is, like, this isn't anything that we haven't seen before. It's definitely not anything that we're seeing at like a historic rate for what he's doing. Like, if we really want to like go like after the real free throw merchants of the league, Danny Avdia in Portland. That's a free throw merchant. Luka Doncic in LA right now, I'm sorry, kind of a free throw merchant. James Harden is the originator of the foul baiting. He's the one that has caused this illness. But for some reason, it's Shai that people point out and go after. There's all the compilations. Like, I know you have at least seen the video of the highlights of Shai, just like Shai Gilgeous MVP package. And it's just him shooting free throws.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah. We've all seen them. And even
Right.
in part of this, Troy, I'll even say part of this is anecdotal of day-to-day life, talking to friends, people that are in that watch that watch basketball at a more casual rate than you and I. Okay. And a lot of them say, man, Shea is just ridiculous. He gets away with stuff that no other player in the league does. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just not true. And here are the numbers to show it.
Yeah.
People are
yeah,
like, oh, but I don't care. It's like, okay, with all due respect, if the evidence isn't out there to prove this, then as much peace and love as I can say this, shut the up.
And I'm even thinking too back to our childhood of like, you know, maybe not height wise necessarily, but just built. I mean, like a Paul Pierce was just a bigger built type of wing. And he got to the line a lot. And I know
Kobe got to the line all the time.
Yeah. And I never really heard much in either of those regards. So
yeah. Well, and again, I think part of why you don't hear that is because of the uniform they're wearing. If Shea was a Laker, it'd be holy aura. Look at Shea, absolute, absolute GOAT, incredible what he does. But because he plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that is historically dominant, that is, that is like fun to hate on. He's not necessarily like the personality of some of those other players who have that level of popularity. I think that leans into the conversation. So yeah, it is because you are straight up hating on the greatest pure scorer we perhaps have ever seen. Like, not to be hyperbolic, but the things that he's doing efficiency wise, like that's why even people here in Detroit, even though we want to be like, oh yeah, Cade Cunningham for MVP, there's a reason why we all go, yeah, Cade's second right now. It's because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is so clearly ahead of the pack that you can't even make a clickbait argument about it, because there is no clickbait argument to be had. Shai is the best player in the world right now, and we're merely living in his.
Yeah. Sean, and the best part about SGA is he's just getting started. Just won his first chip last year, and we talk about how deep the West is getting. We're going to get some Shea Wimby Western Conference Finals here coming up pretty quick.
No question. And I'm excited to watch it. And hey, if we get a Shea Cade NBA Finals, am I going to be complaining about the officiating? Probably. Yes. But when that time comes, we can play this segment back and remind ourselves to appreciate the greatness that we're watching.
That's right.
But Troy, I like that segment. You know what? Hot take. Fair or foul is a good segment. Fair or foul.
It took almost all of our podcasts, but it was fun.
I mean, hey, honestly, that was kind of the intent of it. So sure. I had fun. I hope you did too. And I hope you tuning in did as well. If you like this, be sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so don't miss anything that we have coming. That is going to do it for today. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.